Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including Genlock, which we'll be getting into right now. I'm Andy Potter, and today I'm joined by Michelle Anderer.
Hello.
Alex Bonilla.
Hello.
And Beatriz Mourad.
Hello.
So today we're going to be discussing the third episode of Genlock. So, spoilers up to and including everything in episode 3. So if you missed the premiere, go back and watch it before you get here. Watch episode 3, because we're going to be talking all the plot that happened in this episode and before this one. But before we get into it, you can find everything about this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can subscribe to us on iTunes at overlyanimated.com/iTunes or on our YouTube at youtube.com/overlyanimated. So, with that said, let's just dive right into this episode. And since you three weren't on our first episodes, our first pod, I just want to get your general idea of how you feel about Genlock and how you feel about this episode in general. So, Michelle, how are you feeling about Genlock right now?
So, I was excited for Genlock to be a hot train wreck mess, and I was pleasantly surprised that I actually really like the character stuff a lot at this point. I think I only saw a tiny bit of Ruby, and I know Ruby has seasons and seasons now, but I remember thinking, like, wow, this, like, character dialogue's really off-putting in the initial first season, and everything feels a lot more fluid here with Genlock, so that's been a big plus for me. I have, like, 4 favorite characters already, so for 3 episodes, that feels pretty significant. I mean, and also, like, the world-building stuff seems interesting. I think the thing that's the least interesting to me right now is, like, we're gonna train these robots, yeah! Baseball with robots, rollerblading with robots, oh boy! But, like, all the characters stand out enough that, like, I'm invested in them and I'm willing to put up with the robot stuff, to, you know, wait it out to have the more interesting plot stuff too. Because these do seem like a good mix of characters and they're from all different nationalities and, like, that's really nice too. So I'm higher on it than I felt. Like, I was excited to make fun of it, but now I, like, am actually invested in the characters. So that's been a kind of nice surprise so far.
I think you're had a pretty similar reaction to myself and Haley.
Oh yeah.
we were really excited to meme on this show, but it turns out it's not nearly as bad as we were hoping it would be.
Yeah.
Maybe hoping is a strong word, but we were expecting it to be kind of funny and bad, but it's actually just kind of solid. Yeah, that's great. Alex, how are you feeling about this show?
I did end up binging all of Ruby very recently, and I have a complicated relationship with it where I like some of the characters, but I find all the world building to be kind of stupid and a lot of the plot stuff to be stupid. And with Genlock, I feel like I'm in a similar place where I don't really care about the union stuff or the robot stuff. Mech anime just isn't my deal. But, like, there are 2 characters that I really like in this show, and I think that this episode, since it's doing less of the world building stuff and more of the character stuff, I think that I enjoyed this episode more than the first 2 episodes. But yeah, I'm still skeptical on this show being good necessarily, just because I'm worried that we're gonna go full mech anime soon, and I'm just not here for that. But if they manage to keep the focus on the character development, then I'll be on board, and I think that they've done a good job so far with most stuff. There's nitpicks to be had, but yeah. So if they continue on this road, I will be happy with the show, but I just still have my personal reservations on what direction the show is going to take as we move forward. I kind of want to stay here in the setup mode, but I'm worried what happens once we get out of setup mode, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I totally get that, because mech anime are kind of, there's something else. There's something else, I'll say that. But...
Well, like, I don't like action stuff in general. It's hard for me to be impressed by action just in general in animation. So it's like with Ruby, like, people praise the fights in that a lot, and I just never really got that in my watching experience. So I'm worried that a similar thing is going to happen with Genlock for me. But for the time being, I'm trying to enjoy the ride while it lasts before we get too deep into that.
And I don't know if this helps or not, but I think the fight scenes in this one are a lot less, like, crazy anime fights so far. They're more just, like, they seem like interesting engagements, less than like crazy anime fights from RWBY.
Well, we'll talk about the fights in this episode.
Yeah. I'm sure we will. I want to hear what you have to say about that, Alex, because I definitely am someone who really likes fight scenes. I really like a well choreographed fight scene. I can really enjoy one, but we can get into that later. Beatriz, I waited for you. I made you wait.
I was gonna say, like, of course you waited for me. I'm much more positive than a couple people on here. I was really, really impressed with how pretty the show is in terms of animation. Yeah. I have watched RWBY like anime grow as like in terms of its animation and fluidity and all that, and then seeing this just out of the gate being so smooth and so colorful, and I just really was impressed by that. And I really like the show. I love the setup I love these characters already, and I don't know, I find the pieces that they have set, the pieces they have placed, and seeing how these character dynamics are going to go, I find that really exciting and interesting, and I have a bit more faith in Rooster Teeth. I like RWBY, I guess, a lot more, and I find the world building there not stupid, Alex.
Agree to disagree.
Wow, call out.
And here, I'm not the biggest fan of mech animes in terms of like Gundam, all that. I was never huge with it, and my biggest thing with mechs is that they're kind of unlike something like RWBY where it's actual people, so you can be a little bit more fluid. I'm always worried with like the robots and how kind of awkward they'd be and kind of boxy. And I haven't, in the first two episodes, at least in the second episode is when they showed up, maybe, I think, right? That hasn't been the case. I mean, we haven't really seen a big fight with them yet. So, but so far I'm pretty optimistic, and I don't feel like this is something that's going to end. I feel like it's in a good direction. It's going to keep getting better as it goes on, not get worse.
That's great. Yeah, I find it strange, Beatriz, that we're the ones that are highest on this, I think. Like, I'm usually pretty critical. I think you are too, Beatriz, because I really like this episode. I really liked where this pointed us in the direction of, the rest of Genlock, because this episode did something I really enjoyed, which was that, it really showed me how expressive the robots are, the Holons especially, because it's really stupid. The Holons are really stupid. The Genlocking thing is really stupid. But
not stupid.
Like,
no,
objectively.
It's a genre.
No, Beatriz, let me finish. I mean, sci-fi wise. Like, it's a weird concept. But in execution, in terms of a narrative, in terms of us as a watcher, like, it works really well because you can tell, like, even though they're all stupidly different colors, like Power Rangers, like, you can really tell who's in each robot when they're in them. Because, like, Cammy's robot has body language that is very similar to Cammy's. And it really, and from my perspective watching the show, it makes so much more sense why the characters were very, very expressive in that first episode we met them. Because we're supposed to see that their body language carries over into their robot bodies. And I think that's really well done. I think that's really well done and really well showed in this episode. And I think it makes me more excited for future robot scenes because they're not going to feel as lifeless, I think, now that we can see that these robots are very expressive, and I really enjoy that. And I think that's the biggest story here, that just the robots are not these, like, faceless things. They're faceless, but I mean, they're not monolithic. Like, you can understand emotions from the people who are piloting them, even when we're not seeing their actual bodies. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah. I will say that, the only two that I feel aren't as expressive are Kazu and Valentina, but I think that's really because we haven't really gotten to know them as much as the other two. But once we start getting to know more about them, then yes, I'll agree. But at the moment, those two characters that haven't.
They just haven't been on the focus, I think. Because, I mean, even, like, I think they have had little tiny moments, like the way that Valentina, first, I don't know what to call it, but when she first genlocks and she comes to the robot and she, like, kind of sachets out of her thing.
Yeah. You're right. No, you are right about
like,
that.
They have little moments, but I think it's just because we haven't, the story hasn't focused on them. Not that I don't think it is happening for them as well. Like, I just think we've just spent more time on Cammy because she is just more energetic and exciting to watch do things.
She's the stan attractor.
Yeah, like she's a fan favorite. I can already tell. Like, the people will love Cammy, and I'm not as infatuated with Cammy as some other people, but I know a lot of people are really, really like Cammy. But before we dive into this, let's just start from the beginning here, because this episode is like, not a lot happens in this episode, which I can see there being frustration there. We start in this opening with Dr. Weller talking to them right after Sinclair died, or fake Sinclair died in the tube, and he's trying to convince them to genlock. And it's just kind of after that, it's just like trying to convince them. It's just trying to convince them to go into the Hawans. And that's just pretty much all this scene is. And Alex, did this scene work for you? Because like not a lot happens here. It's just a lot of just character work, and it sounds like you kind of like that stuff.
Yeah, I like the whole push and pull of convincing the kids to buy into the system. There's an argument between Yasmin and Valentina that I was a little annoyed by, because they were talking over each other, so I had to like rewind it 3 times to understand like what each person was saying. So like that part wasn't executed as well as I think it could have been. But like I like the general feel of that, of like tension rising. Yasmin at some point says, "Not my union," so like that kind of like raises questions in the background towards like what the union is, if you care a lot more about that. I just like the tensionness of it.
Yeah.
It's a good way to start an episode, like getting them separated before you lead to the episode being like, hey, let's all join together.
Yeah. Is this the kind of thing that you want the show to be, like these kind of scenes, really, like with characters interacting like this more than the fight scene stuff?
I know it's mean to say, but like they're nice when they're outside of the Holons.
I don't think that's mean to say. I think it's just you're looking for something different from a series. Like I don't think that's mean.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem, right? Because I know what this series is supposed to be, but like I enjoyed these parts a little bit more than the later robot training scenes. But well, I mean, we'll give the series time, but like I think that this is a good example of the show doing well and like building up its characters and like having meaningful conflicts that make for interesting television.
Yeah, and I think this is completely fair, because they just watched someone die doing what they're about to do. And But Michelle, what did you think of this scene? Did you like this push and pull that Alex was mentioning?
Oh, totally. And I think we're really getting the sense that this is the first time all these people are really having a chance to get to know each other, because they were all recruited from different countries pretty much.
Yeah.
And it definitely seems like Yaz has like, she had a past life that she is in no hurry to reveal to the rest of the crew. And I think that potential backstory is pretty interesting. I feel like there's a lot there we could get into in the future. I also since I met Dr. Weller, I've been having my red flag alarm up the whole time, because I'm like, he seems so shady, and he was willing to let the imposter die, and at least Raquel, is that how you say?
I've been calling her Colonel Marin, because that's easier to say.
Colonel Marin, yeah. So Marin, she at least was gonna warn him, wait, no, you do that, you'll die. And he's like, no, let him go on, it's fine. And it makes me even wonder if we don't know the specifics of how they found Julian Chase, but the fact that he's the most suited for this new experiment, I wonder if they legit tried to almost kill him so that they could recruit him easier. I think that's honestly on the table. So yeah, I'm keeping my eye on Dr. Weller, but as far as the character interactions, I think it's super intriguing, and like I said, 4 of them are my faves already. So I mean, they all have very different characterization, but they don't feel too one note, and I feel like that's something that initially kind of drew me off Ruby, and again, I haven't seen it play out fully. Maybe the characters get a lot stronger, but I was like, oh, okay, I kind of they all seem kind of specific archetypes, and that isn't to say these guys aren't, but they feel a little more fleshed out than I was expecting, and I think that's why I have gravitated to them more than I expected, and a big part of why I actually enjoy the show so much. So yeah, I like the character stuff so far. I think it's good. I definitely like the character stuff more than the robot stuff. It's just because, think about it this way. I mean, robots are cool. That's true. But robots are as cool as the people inside the robots, right? Like, you wouldn't watch an entire movie about cars if you didn't care about the people driving the cars.
Well, I mean, what if the movie is Cars?
In Pixar begs to differ.
Well, they have, like, actual personalities. They have, like, teeth and eyeballs. It's a little different.
I don't know why, but you saying the cars in Pixar's Cars had teeth made me really uncomfortable. I don't know why.
They do, though.
They do.
Do the Holons have teeth? I think the Holons have teeth.
They don't have mouths.
I don't think they can't open their mouths. I don't know if they have mouths.
Yeah, they don't have mouths.
Anyways, you touched on something, Michelle, there with Dr. Weller. I want to get back to that later when we talk about this ending scene of this episode, because I want to know how you guys feel about Dr. Weller. But before we get to that, Beatriz, did you like this, like, opening scene, like, with all this character work? Because it is a little slow, and I'm not sure how I feel about it.
I did, but let's hear about you, because I feel like you're the one who has
I think that this was a fine scene, but I do think that it's a little bit weak is the wrong word. I feel like it just rehashes a lot of the stuff we already knew about the characters. I don't think we got new flavor to some of them. It felt like conflict we needed to have, but it didn't, like, because I felt like we got a lot of this flavor from the characters last episode, and it just felt like rehashing a little bit to me. But that said, I think it was well written, and I think it was interesting to watch. I'm just not sure if this needed to be done right now. Like, it could have been, I feel like we could have gotten new information about these characters instead of just learning again that, like, Yasmin was in the Union at one point, and I'm not sure if we learned anything new about her.
Valentina, I think, is the counterpoint, because Valentina, we barely knew anything about her from the first two episodes. And, like, this scene, it especially focuses on her side of things, and, like, her kind of being the calm representative of the anti-Weller fragment of this grouping. So I think that this scene especially works because we do get new information, especially from Valentina.
That's true. Valentina, I think, is the standout here in terms of we learn stuff about her, and I think Chase even has a good argument against, like, to say, like, well, that's just like you're gonna regret it when you make that decision, I guess. Like, I think that was a good argument from him, like that everyone's gonna die and you're gonna be there and you could have done something, but I don't know. It seems like these people are. It feels like they're being kind of forced into it, despite what's said at the end of the episode. They feel like they're just being forced into being these soldiers, essentially.
Oh, totally.
Well, we're getting that he's kind of doing manipulation stuff here.
Yeah, so, Dr. was very good at that, clearly.
Yeah.
But,
I mean...
Oh, sorry.
So, but I mean, I will say, like, I feel like we also can't downplay the fact that with this scene, we also started getting more of how this dynamic of this team is going to go. Because maybe we may not necessarily learn about the backstory of every single character, but it's with this scene that we start getting to know about how Kazu and Cammy are going to interact, how they all do have this kind of interest and thrill of adventure, even if it is dangerous. So, I mean, yes, we may not get information about them from, like, the get-go, but we do get information of how these personalities are going to interact, and that's something we didn't get in the previous episode, because before they even had a chance to really interact, there was already a spy trying to escape with information, or not even escape, just trying to get a robot into steal.
His plan didn't make a lot of sense.
You know, they've done that much research. How could they not know you need to be, like, perfect for this machine for the conversion to work?
Okay, but not just that, but also the fact that, like, his body was gonna stay there. The robot they could just kill his body, and what happens to the robot? I mean, is the mind now completely in the robot, and it won't have the link anymore? We don't know that. But the point is, a lot happened in the second episode, and it didn't really allow us to get a sense of how this team dynamic was going to go, and I feel like that's what this episode was for. So I understand why you may think it was a little slow, but I feel like it was necessary, and just in terms of planning the foundations for this show.
I think that's fair. I think it definitely is necessary, but I think the second half works a lot better at showing us dynamics, especially with where the action scenes are going to be. I like the Holon stuff better, but we still have one more thing to cover before we get there, because we also have, while this is happening concurrently, we have Weller talking to Colonel Marin up in her office. And I think the most important thing that happens here is that we learn that estimates show that in 6 months, all of North America will be in Union control. So that puts a very tight schedule onto this season, in that there's going to be, that the Union is really strong, and they're probably going to push back on the Vanguard pretty soon. So that's going to be the conflict we're leading into here. So that's going to lead to fight scenes, a lot of fight scenes, but
Can I just comment on these scenes? They're very similar to early RWBY scenes where you see Ozpin and the leaders of the school talking to each other as like cutaways from the main team. And like in RWBY, those scenes are often boring because those characters, especially early on, are kind of cardboard cutouts. But in this show, because David Tennant is so awesome, like he sprinkles in humor with the serious conversation. So like these scenes work so much better in this show than they do in RWBY because it loses the self-seriousness that other shows tend to do with these kind of info dumps between leaders.
Granted, especially in the early seasons of RWBY, a lot of times when he was talking to them, they didn't even have faces. Yeah. And the problem with that is it probably had more to do with budget. So I feel like that's an unfair comparison because clearly there is a little bit more budget in here. So it allows for there's a lot that expression
that makes this a better show.
Yeah. Okay, because RWBY didn't have money, so obviously this is a better. I'm just saying
they have
we should stop. I'm just saying we shouldn't just completely compare this to RWBY as like the only source of comparison. There's so many more.
I do think that early RWBY is a completely different show. I agree, Beatriz, but I think it is fair to say this is very similar in directing and in terms of that, like that these are two leaders talking in an office about plans for the students at their quote unquote school. And but I think the big difference here is I agree with Alex that David Tennant just brings a lot of charisma to this role.
Yeah.
And I really like the whole clone offshoot they discussion wherever he said he's tried to clone himself. And that almost feels like just a David Tennant ad lib. It really just does, because I feel like something he would say. But it just, I think this scene works really well, and they really did piece it together with the other scene really well, and I was pretty surprised by that, because it just felt very good. It felt like really good writing there. But also Beatriz, Colonel Marin, does she speak Spanish at one point in this?
She does, and she says it wrong.
Oh, she does?
Ayunado. Something what is it? Because ayúdanos is what she says.
Dios ayúdenos, right?
Yeah, she's saying Dios ayúdanos. But then God help us. But then she says she replaces the D with an N. Oh. So I'm like, this woman doesn't speak Spanish, which is fine. Or maybe she's like, I don't know, 4th, 5th generation Latinx, and they've lost, like, she doesn't know, whatever. So that's fine if that's part of her character, completely fine. But I did like replay that like 5,000 times, being like, did you really replace the D with an N and just not say it right? Yeah. So
I'm sorry. I thought that'd be. Sorry, go ahead.
There is also a Puerto Rico flag in the background of our office. We should point that out. So.
Exactly. So that also makes it even more plays out with the whole, because Puerto Ricans just are by birth, they're already American citizens, so it would make sense for her to, if she was Puerto Rican from Puerto Rico, or if she's Puerto Rican from, like, the States, it would make sense if, say, she lost a little bit of the Spanish.
And it
fits. That's what I'm saying.
It's hard.
If Florida doesn't exist in this universe, how does Puerto Rico exist?
Well, it might not anymore.
New York is like huge Puerto Rican population.
Okay, so maybe Puerto Rico doesn't exist, but like Puerto Ricans exist.
Yeah, maybe probably. Like Puerto Rican descent does exist, you know. So like there's a huge like diaspora over here. So that's why like even more so if like Puerto Rico doesn't exist, then I wouldn't be surprised that she like would start losing that. Because that's something even now people like are feeling self-conscious, that Latinos feel self-conscious about, as if they're losing their Spanish. Yeah. So
right, we have developed in-show explanations for bad Spanish.
Yeah, no, but I think
good job, guys.
But I think this is an interesting discussion, because I think if like they were like, I'm not saying they were trying to do that, but if they were trying to portray a character that is not as good at Spanish, but they are of Spanish descent, that's a really hard thing to portray without having ham-fisted dialogue. And I'm not sure if it's just interesting. I'm not saying there's more to it than that.
My big thing is that she has an accent.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so because you have an accent, that means that it suggests that English isn't your first language.
Yeah.
But if your first language is Spanish and you're gonna make a mistake like that, instead of saying ayúdanos, you say ayúnanos. It's like, I thought she was saying that she was fasting. I was like, what's going on? So, so I'm just saying, if they want to go that route, then don't make her have like, and I'm not saying like a sort of like a accent in terms of like a regional accent. I'm saying like she sounds like she learned English as her second one. So I'm just like, if you're gonna make a mistake with your first language, then maybe that shouldn't be your first language when you're making this character. Maybe that shouldn't have been the character.
No, that's fine. And I really like that insight from you. Like I clearly don't have that insight to be able to make a judgment on that. But I think now we can move on to probably the meatiest part, or not the meatiest, but maybe the most fun part of the episode, in that we get to focus on Cammy now. Because Cammy is kind of the through line for the rest of the plot for this episode, because we follow along with Chase and Madrani genlocking into their mechs. And Cammy is kind of like nose goes into, it's chosen to be genlocked first. And we kind of, I don't know, I don't know if I would be as quick as Cammy, or even as willing as Cammy, to go into this machine, because it's...
Well, she's not even willing, she's just the last person.
She's like, okay.
Yeah, but still, even then, it's a little much to be like, nose goes, okay, I guess I'll get in the death machine now, because I didn't hit my nose fast
it's not like he had a gun pointed to her. Like, he could have still said no. It's not like they literally dragged her there.
Yeah.
She could have still said no. I think that they were they're interested. They see didn't they like see the robot and they were like, okay, like,
yeah.
Like he told them, like, look, just try it once and then I'll tell him whatever. And then they could have still said no, and they didn't say no.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like,
I think
we're
funny.
playing up a little bit more. I think we're playing up the, Dr. Weller, he's evil mysteriously. I think or like he's complicated. I feel like we're playing that a little bit too much for what we've seen so far.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
I will say the show did a good job at like playing up the tension of her in the pod, and like Dr. Weller is giving this very vague dialogue about like grab the lights, hold it on.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
he got so into it.
Yeah, David Tennant got really into that.
That kind of stuff accompanying her being like hesitant to go in. Like, I think the show does a good job of making it tense, even though you know that it's gonna work, because that's just the premise of the show. But I think that the show still does a good job in spite of that, of like making it feel like something uncertain, even so.
Yes, but and I think I agree, because it's obvious that they're gonna work. It's gonna work, that they're gonna get into their holons. But this is still at least an exciting scene. I don't know if tense is the right word for me. I wasn't really tense about it, but I did find it exciting to watch, and I did really like. There was some really, maybe funny is a strong word, but some silly dialogue here that I enjoyed. Like, Cammy says, time to go down the rabbit hole, which is, they really harped on the fact that her whole motif is that she's a bunny this whole episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did it a lot. But then after that, she mentions her manga collection to Kazu, which I think was actually a pretty funny bit, because...
It's so funny.
Plus, her getting his name wrong was just, like, kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
Because it, like, really ruffles his face. Like, no, it's not Kazoo, it's Kazu.
What I think is most funny about it is I think Cammy knows that there's a difference. It's just
totally. She's totally messing with him.
Yeah. And then the most important part of this whole scene is we get to see the rainbow tunnel from the intro, guys.
Yeah.
It's a real place. It's a real thing that they don't just jump through it in the intro. They actually have to go through it to get to their holons. But yeah.
It's like mind space.
Yeah. It's like some kind of weird, it's like some weird Code Lyoko tube. But, yeah, and then Cammy gets into a robot, and I think the most interesting part here, after she gets into a robot, is that it's just like, easy might be the wrong word, but it doesn't seem it's like that hard to control the robot, even though it's her first time. Like, it seems like it's pretty natural for her to walk around, which I kind of like this dynamic for the show, because a lot of mech shows, like, you get into the robot the first time, and either it's like the character can instantly control it, and it's some weird levers and latches and stuff, and they can somehow control the robot perfectly, and it makes no sense. Or it's like something like this where it's like more intuitive like this, but they just kind of like stumble about. But this kind of like rides a line of like being, they clearly can control the robot, but they don't have mastery of it. And I really like that here, where it's just, these people aren't losers, but they can be a lot better. And I like that here.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Weller has that really good, like, part when Cammy said when she's first in it and she's like, whoa, like she feels like her center of gravity's off because she's finally tall now, and he's like, okay, like I designed it that way on purpose, it's gonna take a little adjusting, but like you'll figure it out. And I like little details like that, because like you're saying, Annie, like he wouldn't be perfect at that, but the fact that literally they're digitizing their brains, and you think about your brain does control how you move your body, so in that way it does make sense that you'd still have some trouble in a new body, but you'd more or less already know how to control it.
You're still a human being who knows how to walk.
Yeah. Who knows how to walk, exactly.
Yeah.
The episode title is Second Birthday,
yes.
And here Dr. Weller says, happy second birthday, welcome to your new body. Like, so there's the episode title, guys.
Yes, oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Job.
Thanks, Alex. I forgot to bring up the episode titles, because Rooster Teeth is kind of known for bad episode titles. Well, I think every animation studio Lately, it's had some really bad
I think
titles.
this one kind of works.
This one's fine.
Yeah, no, it does.
This one's
work.
fine. It's not horrible. Not like, yeah, I won't go into all the bad ones, but this one's fine. But he does mention this being their second birthday, kind of implying that this body is kind of a new life for them, which I think is an interesting thing to talk about, because it seems to me that Weller wants this to be a new life, these robots, which is kind of more implication that he's evil, but again, I'm saving that till we talk about his final speech. But but I actually, Alex, I think that he says the second birthday thing after Kazu and Valentina then get into their Holons as well.
Yeah.
And they're very excited about it, which they
by then they've been sold after they saw Cammy's success.
Yeah, they were very excited. And so they're just really, like, they both also are very good at controlling their Holons right away. Maybe even a little more than Cammy, but not like they have complete mastery of it. Beatriz, you haven't said a lot about this. Did you like this intro scene to them Holon or Genlocking into their robots?
I mean, I did, and I think Michelle got it right in that, I think this is why, like, had they been awkward, it wouldn't have made sense, because this isn't them controlling this very bulky, like, set of controls, like an airplane thing, and it's like, they're not piloting this, they are legit just transferring themselves into a new body. So I liked that, and I like how they have thought about these details and been like, they would be a little awkward, but they wouldn't be completely, it wouldn't be bulky, which is why it makes me a little bit less worried about, say, fight scenes, because again, I mentioned how in mech fights, they are bulky, and it is awkward. So if they are going to be able to move more fluidly, then maybe I'm not going to be as worried. My big thing is I kind of wish they had done a little bit more with the sensory kind of stuff, because they kind of teased it a little bit, but I kind of want it, if suddenly I have the ability to magnify and zoom in like miles away and be able to hear more people than previously thought, or things are louder to me, I wanted a little bit more play on that, if anything.
They definitely hinted at it, especially with Cammy, especially with her like listening on conversations, and then they really harped on it when they were talking, when Chase saw Miranda talking to what appears to be her new boyfriend, who is named Jody. Who is one of the other mech pilots in the like crew that's training them.
Can we like talk about that for a second?
Yes, that's why I brought it up. No, I just thought, Beatriz, I just thought I'd bring something up and then just move on and not talk about it. That's what I thought I'd do. Beatriz.
I don't know.
Beatriz, do you want to talk about this love triangle?
Not the love triangle part. Because there was that whole, I didn't want it to be him. It could have been any other guy. I would have preferred the technician guy.
Like Miguel, the guy voiced by Miles.
He's okay.
I would have preferred him, because then that would have been a little bit more complicated, because he seemed really, really close to Chase.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, like that could have made it a little bit trickier. This guy never seemed too close to him. He seems like a jerk. He's been like, he was kind of a jerk in the first episode when he was like, oh, well, like, if you break up, well, then maybe I will. And it's like, no, dude, like, stop. I wouldn't want to get near you if I heard you say that about me and my current boyfriend. Like, no. So I kind of was just like, did it have to be him? Could it have been anybody else?
I think the biggest thing that's annoying from this is that it's very clear that Miranda's going to break up with this guy, even though we've only really
It's not gonna last.
It's kind of unfortunate, because I agree with you, Beatrice. It would have been more interesting, not fun, but more interesting if Miranda was dating someone who didn't seem like a jerk. Like, it seemed like it was someone who she really liked, and it wasn't Chase. And this scene, it kind of just like you said, makes Jody have to be a jerk. Alex, do you feel anything towards this love triangle type thing?
No, and it makes me annoyed, because it makes me not like Michael B. Jordan's character, and it makes me not really enjoy Dakota Fanning's character. Because Michael B. Jordan, where he is right now, his main conflict is A, being dead, and B, I lost my girlfriend. That's his two main traits. I don't care about that. Like, get over yourself.
Yeah.
But and Dakota Fanning, I feel like she is capable of doing more than just being girlfriend that anime protagonist is pining over. But like, obviously it's only 3 episodes. There's more time for them and all. But like, it's a very lackluster introduction to both of these characters. Well, it's a lackluster development after the first episode, which was kind of interesting, like seeing them being together, and then we have the main event of them getting separated. But now that they've gotten back together, they're now back in the show again. It feels like it's falling into cliche that I'm not interested in. And it's kind of sad because it's the main character. I should be interested in him, but I am not. I care more about the other members of the team than him. Yeah. And this is just creepy. Like, it's just like focusing in from far away on somebody's conversation, on your ex conversation. Like, it's not sympathetic at all. So, like, it just, I don't know. This is my least favorite part of the episode, and it's a low point, and I hope that what's his name? Julian gets other stuff to do, and I hope that Miranda gets other stuff to do than just them hovering around each other, staring at each other, but having weird romantic feelings.
Can I?
Go ahead. What was it, Beatriz?
I just want to say that, Madrani and Miranda in that one scene of theirs have much more chemistry than her and that guy. What's his name? Jody? I don't care.
Jody.
Yeah.
Like, Jody.
She has more chemistry. Okay, and also, how dare they, he shares a name with Jodie Foster. That's an insult to the LGBT community, I think. That's just an insult. Anyway.
Okay, Beatriz, that's a little bit.
I just think they could have actually had them have chemistry. Because, there could have been tension, something. They could have made him have more chemistry with her, and they didn't. The fact that I find more chemistry with her and Madrani is not surprising, but also they could have done a lot more to make me sway toward caring about them. Yeah. That relationship.
I feel like the reason that they made her go with Jody is that, like we were saying, right? They don't intend for that to last. They want Miranda to go back to Julian. But my issue with that is, Julian has not put himself in a great position at this point for her to go back to him. And I don't want him to prove himself by, being good at robot stuff or having her current boyfriend be, that much worse so that she just breaks up with him and gets sad and just sees her ex, hanging around, and that's why they get together. There's not enough good communication and reason for them to have a healthy, trusting relationship at this point. Too much has changed, and it's too big of a blow for it to be wrapped up anytime soon in a believable way. But it concerns me, right? Because again, there's no way her current boyfriend's gonna do it for her. She seems like a decent enough person, the little we've seen of her. So, I don't know, but I feel like that is, the intention of not making him that interesting and kind of someone you can throw off, because clearly it seems like they very intentionally want her to get back together with Julian. But, I mean, I agree with Alex that Miranda, I thought the first episode we were setting her up to be, one of the two main characters, because we're following the aftermath through her perspective. And then once the other crew members get there, it just kind of totally shifts to, them doing robot stuff, and maybe there'll be episodes that are more about her. I don't know, but I was kind of surprised that she got kind of sidelined so quickly into the show initially, and it bums me out because I do think she could be doing a lot more. She seems like she's very capable. I like her design. I think the voice acting's really good, but right now she's just totally pegged as being a love interest and not that much else.
Yeah, I should have more purpose than making Michael B. Jordan feel bad.
I know, and again, if they get together, maybe that'll be the end of her. I want her to be able to do her own thing that's not about him.
Miranda definitely is the most disappointing part so far. But I do think that the one hope we have is that Dakota Fanning is billed as right after Michael B. Jordan. Yeah. She is the second main character. It could just be this episode was supposed to be a focus on the new Holon pilots. And then I also posit that the fact that there is still one more Holon here, the one that Sinclair was supposed to go into.
Yeah, she can pick the blue one.
Yeah. So, and also,
I'm hoping.
There's also something to notice here that the blue one is also the same color as Chase's blue Holon. And I think that's kind of on purpose. That Miranda will take the same colored one as her quote unquote boyfriend, and that they're gonna work together really well in Holons together or something. But that's just me guessing at stuff.
I mean, also because it's also interesting how in the opening, every character except hers, when their name shows up, their character shows up. Hers, the only thing is hers just shows up and it's empty screen. So I wouldn't be surprised if what they did was they just took out her being another going through that kind of rainbow tunnel. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe that's the reason why they can't show it yet, because they don't want to spoil it, but that would make sense why.
There's definitely a noticeable blank spot in that opening when they do that. It looks like she's supposed to be there. And it also is interesting because she only has one single shot in the entire opening, and it's just her sitting in a mech. Like, it really feels like we're going to get more.
It is.
And
when I first saw it, I really genuinely thought that it was going to be with David Tennant and Dakota Fanning.
Yeah.
But then do that.
Yeah. But it seems like a good bridge into the next part of the episode where we have Capture the Flag. Like, we have this little cute scene with fun, like, playing baseball and playing tag, but that moves really quickly into this scene where we actually get some training. And we play Capture the Flag with Miranda and Jody and the squad leader Leon, I think his name is. And they're playing Capture the Flag together, and it's really clear that the trained soldiers are much better than these random people who have just gotten in some random robots. And which makes sense, which I think is good. Even though they have good tech, like, they're not as good as these soldiers. And it's there's I guess I put a pin in this for later, Alex, so I guess now's the time. How did you feel about these fight scenes my action scenes? How did you feel about these action scenes this episode?
Well, my head just says, okay, necessary training scene. We need to set up that they're just starting out, so we make them look bad and all. And so, like, it's fine and all, but it starts with just them, like, running straight into them, and that's not that interesting. There's a moment where, like, Valentina, like, hides behind a truck and almost gets there. That was kind of fun and all. I'm trying to remember all the moments that stand out. I think that's it.
Like, there was a moment when Kazu used Cammy's body as a shield. Did you mention that?
No.
That was a good moment.
I guess.
Yeah.
But
shows his ruthlessness.
But
I don't know. And I think also my impression is marred by the fact that later Michael B. Jordan steps in and is like, hey, I'll show you how it's done. And it's just an excuse to show off to his ex-girlfriend and, like, show up the new boyfriend. So, like, that it taints the scene a little bit.
I mean, it taints it more than a little. Because there's a moment when he even, like, gets really close to his face and, like, shakes his head back and forth.
He's like, what's happening here? Are you mad?
Yeah.
So,
It's like, why is he mad? He died.
You were gone
You kept it from her.
I know he died. Why is he mad that she moved on? It's been 4 years.
Yeah.
Because he's broody anime protagonist. That's what they all do. It's so stupid.
It's really not a good look. And the more this happens, the more Chase is not going to be sympathetic, because I really think this whole episode, I really think Cammy and Valentina and Kazu come off very sympathetic this episode, and I really enjoyed their actions. Like, just even the training, even though I like action scenes a little more than you, Alex, I think the training scene was really fun. I think that Cammy and them failing was enjoyable, and watching just how bad they were. And even if the chase fight scene was a little more, like, annoying because there's that boyfriend thing in it, I do think it was cool seeing just how much better he was than the other ones. Michelle, did you have any different feelings about this fight scene or action scene as it was?
Oh, well, I was watching it for, like, the first minute, and then I was like, this is kind of boring. I'm gonna do something else on the internet and listen to it. And I came back after like 3 minutes, and it was still happening. I was like, oh, that's fun.
Wow.
How long is this? I understood what was happening, and I was like, okay, so it's training sequence. That's cool. Let me know when you're done, because I get it, and I don't need to see that for 5 minutes. But I mean, again, I will say I like that, the different characters gravitated toward different ways of honing these skills. Kazu likes baseball. Cammy likes rollerblading. Yaz, I forget what Yaz likes. Probably something cool, because she's really cool.
She likes being stealthy.
She likes to be stealthy. Valentina seems kind of stealthy too in her own way, very confident. And you, like you were saying early on, Andy, like you get a sense of their personalities through how they use their body language using the robots. And I will say I'm very happy at the robot design being so unisex. Like, everyone's body's the same, they're just different colors. And when Cammy first came out, I was like, oh no, is this, because the other robots were so boxy, and I was like, oh no, is this like the girl robot? Oh no, we can have boy and girl robots? I hope not. And then Kazu got up there and it's like, oh thank God, like they're all the same. Phew, crisis averted.
At least for now they are. And it looks like they might be putting like other things on them later that might make them more feminine or masculine. But right now it is cool that they aren't.
Yeah, it is cool that they're all the same. Yeah. So I liked that detail.
Yeah, and what's nice in terms of like things that they're gonna add to it that makes it either more masculine or feminine, I feel like by that point it's a decision that they are making themselves and how they want to be presented versus say it's already decided for them.
Yeah, like Dr. Weller didn't decide. Like, they're choosing for themselves, which is nice.
Right. So if it does become either more masculine or more feminine later, you can make the argument that's the choice of the character, which is all in their right to present themselves however they want to. So it makes sense.
Yeah, and that's completely fine. But I don't think there's anything else. Beatriz, am I alone here with this fight scene, or do you have anything else you wanted to say here?
I mean, I liked it. I mean, I liked the banter of like, oh, like a football? You mean I like Cammy being like, you mean an actual football? And then,
sports jokes.
Alex,
I make that joke all the time.
Wait, Beatriz.
Because American football is not football.
Wait, Beatriz, wait a second though. Alex, you cannot ugh at sports jokes. Your entire...
It's the most basic sports joke.
But your job is sports. You can't ugh at this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
you're not allowed, apparently.
Look,
he hears about soccer superiority.
Enjoy it and all, but like I have to deal with sports for a living, so it's like the most. It's like when like war is a stat and the only joke people have is war. What is it good for? Like it's a joke that just gets repeated over and over. Stop comparing footballs.
I'm just saying, one's a football and one's a pigskin.
Shut up!
Oh. Wait, and one's a what?
A pigskin.
A pigskin. Oh yeah, let's call it pigskin sports. That sounds great.
Yeah,
pigskins. The American pastime.
Watch the old pigskin get thrown around tomorrow on CBS.
But I don't know. I like how I enjoyed it. I liked how like you said, I liked how seeing them emotions, seeing their physical characteristics, like seeing Cammy like throwing like the middle finger, but it's the peace sign backwards. Like I liked her doing that. I liked I don't know, I had fun with it. I like how the first thing they thought is like, oh, we're big robots, so we're just gonna barrel straight at them. And 9 times out of 10 in an anime, that would work. And it'd be all fine. And they're like, aha, you can't stop us, we're giant robots. And it's like, no, you actually have to use your head.
But Chase then just immediately barreled right towards them once he was...
Which is true. Like, that was my big critique. Is like, with them, I enjoyed it because I understood, like, that to me was like, okay, makes sense that they're awkward and blocky, like, it makes sense. With Chase, I was like, what just happened here? Because his plan wasn't that bright either. Like, it wasn't that impressive.
I was kind of expecting Chase to do something more innovative with like the scenery and like the hiding and stuff like that, but he just ran straight at them.
Like, I wanted him to jump on one of those trucks and like do like a skateboard move or something. I wanted him to do something interesting. And that's not.
That said, there was some really fun music behind Chase's one. I didn't.
You can't control that.
Yeah,
that was somebody else.
That's like RT's thing. Like, they really like having like these like music video fight scenes. Like, they really like that. Like,
they do.
And I think they're fun usually. I think they usually succeed.
How do you feel about being electro rock for the main cast, but then as soon as his character shows up, it turns into rap? Like
that is something.
That's true.
That is true.
I felt a little weird when that transition happened, but it is all good music, and that is one thing I will praise about this show. The theme music is really good, and all the musical selections in the show have been really good. So I'm very grateful for this show to introducing me to. I think it's Battle Tapes.
Yeah.
Their music has been consistently good and well used in this show.
And also, before we get on their whole rap thing, in their defense, Chase's song in the first episode was definitely not rap. Like, they were singing I forget what the song was already, but but him and Miranda were singing a song back and forth, like they were singing back and forth a song, and it definitely was not a rap song.
Right, it was an old jazz.
Yeah, sorry, that was it, an old jazz. And so, it might just be this one song was rap, and I think that's fine, but it is kind of worrisome if they just choose rap every single time he has a fight scene. That is true. I think let's move into the end of this episode now, because we have one last thing I want to talk about before we move on, and it's the speech Dr. Weller gives to the Holon pilots, where he talks to them about their reason for fighting, and he hides from them the fact that there's 6 months remaining, that they have 6 months left before essentially the Vanguard loses, and just kind of manipulates them into agreeing to work with him for more. Like, he kind of just pokes all 3 of their buttons into convincing them to work for him. And it's subtle from their perspective, but from an audience perspective, it's very clear that he just kind of called out 3 things that Kazu, Valentina, and Cammy would all really latch on to and want to work for. So, this is kind of just more evidence that Dr. Well is evil, like you were saying, Michelle. And this
okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Evil? I mean, I think he could be one of those scientists, who just to him, it makes perfect sense.
But,
and, logic is so great. And morality, you can take it or leave it.
Yeah.
I don't want to say he's evil in the way that kind of dismisses his potential complexity, but I do think he's shady as heck.
Yeah. When I say evil, just to be clear, for your sake, Michelle, I'm saying that he's an antagonist. He's someone who's not as on the up and up as he's being made out to be right now.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I mean.
Totally.
I'm just reducing it to one word for simplicity, but yeah. Yeah, but I think this is just more evidence towards that he could be someone not really working for the good of man, because it's kind of suspicious, this manipulation he's doing to everyone.
That's the only thing that's suspicious, though, because, so Julian's been gone for 4 years, right?
Yep.
He still only has half a body and he lives in a tube.
Wait, but they explained that though. That they said that the nanotech regeneration technology was there, but then he said that those black metal things were still invading his body and keeping him from being able to do that.
Yeah, and that
I also think though Dr. Weller is a brilliant enough scientist from what we've seen that he might not be trying as hard as he could be to giving Julian Chase some kind of body, because he's so into this idea of robots being the next frontier for humanity. I think there could be other reasons why Julian might come down to him being like, I'd love to have prosthetic legs and stuff at some point. And Dr. Will saying, oh, you got a robot though. It's way better.
But I think that
it's the new frontier.
But I think Weller hides something really important here, because there's a part in a little earlier that we skipped over where he sees a pop-up and it says set maximum safe upload count remaining. And it kind of implies that they can't upload their brains to these robots over and over and over again. And that seems kind of important, especially to someone like Chase, who kind of needs his robot body to live. And so...
Yeah, that seems sketchy, too.
Yeah, and that seems like the biggest thing he's hiding from them.
Just sort of related to that, also as a throwaway line, he's like, well, we better avoid uptime, a concept we'll get to later. He literally uses the phrase, a concept we'll get to later.
Yeah.
What kind of a show dialogue is
that? Yeah, that was a little bit ham-fisted. But it does come off kind of anamorphs, they can only be in the robots for so many hours before they're, stuck in the robots or something. But we'll see.
It's it taxes their brains too much for that kind of intense connection, maybe.
Which I assume will mean that we'll definitely get episodes where they're forced to get really close to uptime and something bad happens. Beatriz, did you get this kind of vibe that Michelle might have been getting from this scene, that Weller might be evil?
No.
So we're alone here.
Really?
Really?
Okay.
What do you think he's genuine? Do you think he's just manipulating them because he thinks he needs to push them in a good direction or whatever?
I feel like manipulation is a really harsh word. I was for him to fully 100% manipulate them, it would have been oh, and by the way, we only have 6 months left. So just to guilt trip you even more. I feel to me, his whole speech about oh, the media and this stuff is no different than Chase trying to convince Valentina, being if you would regret this later. That to me, those two speeches are not the same argument, but it's the same kind of tone. So it's for me, that's not huge with manipulation. And I don't know, for me, what I found he was annoyed by was the whole militarization of everything.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm reading him not as militant or an antagonist. I'm reading him as a pacifist. And not to say that an antagonist can't be a pacifist, but to me, I'm just it's one thing for him to be haha, world domination, we are going to all be robots eventually. It's I don't know. I feel for me, it's more he's going for more the good of everyone. And it's one thing to not tell everybody everything, I feel he's going to be treated as that figure that's the wise, not old, but the wise old man who knows everything, but will only tell it to you eventually once he's forced to.
Yeah.
So to me, that doesn't necessarily make them evil. That just makes them sometimes, depending on the character, annoying. I haven't found him annoying.
No, I definitely don't think he's annoying.
He's very charming and fun to watch.
No, and I'm not saying you guys are saying he's annoying, but I'm saying that I'm not seeing the
red flags,
ominousness of him. I'm seeing just this is another archetype, and this is the archetype in this world, which is the Dumbledore figure that knows everything and is super talented and genius, but will keep secrets from you until you're ready. So that's my take. Like, I don't see him as going evil, but he could. I just, based on what we've seen so far, I haven't gotten that notion yet.
Yeah, that's fair. I just think that I definitely saw the pacifist side of him, but I also saw that he could be an antagonist. Like, I definitely completely agree with the side that he's not very militant. Like, I think that's very clearly stated in this episode, unless he's just straight up lying, which I don't think he is. He's very much comes off as a pacifist here, which I appreciate. I appreciate that in the show with, like, fighting and stuff. Like, I think that's a good perspective to have. That said, I think, that's the entire episode. There's not much here.
Well, if I may, I just want to give my support to Dr. Weller.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm free to serve in his stead. I also get the sensation that, like, he's well intentioned, but as has been mentioned, like, it is kind of the mad scientist trope of, like, they don't fully think through the consequences of their actions. In the conversation he has with the general, he's like, hey, we could have just kept doing our own thing, but you guys had to militarize it. But as if, like, when you build something like this, you don't think that this will eventually get turned into a weapon. So it's like, I just get that kind of vibe from him, that he's kind of annoyed with the situation that he's in, but he's trying to make the best of it. And I think, Andy, you mentioned a phrase somewhere about, like, he doesn't like his trust in mankind or something, or, like, alluding to some kind of future where, like, we all get into these holons. But it's an interesting thought, because actually his speech is in response to Valentina being like, hey, mankind can't really be saved. Like, they're just going to keep being evil. Yeah. And that's part of what sparks Dr. Weller's speech. It's like, no, mankind is worth saving, and you should be able to help them with these holons, sort of thing. Call me naive, but I believe him. I believe that deep down, he really does think that these robots will be the spark to help mankind move forward and be good. But at first, they need to get through this annoyance of war. Then once that's over, everything will be hunky-dory. But right now, he has to, like, deal with all this junk, and that's what's kind of messing up his decision making, where he thinks he's doing the right thing now, but because we're in a war situation, a lot of that is going to have unintended consequences. For example, hiding the 6 months thing. You know that's going to bite you in the ass later, but he's like, I'll do it now, and we'll just see what happens after.
Well, and I agree with everything you said. I do think that he's trying to do the best for humanity, but I don't think that means he's not an antagonist. Like, the best villains all think that they're doing the right thing. And I think that Weller thinks he's doing the best he can for humanity, but I think there's going to be something that happens here. I'm not sure what it is. I think he's hiding something. I think he's doing something else in the shadows that is, he knows other people will not agree with, but he thinks it's a necessary thing to push forward to save humanity in whatever way he thinks that's right. But I do think that it could easily just be that he is a good person and he's just trying to help people, but I'm not ready to write him off as an antagonist yet. It might not be for.
I mean, I won't write it off either. It's only been 3 episodes.
Yeah,
but, like,
I mean,
at the moment, he's not giving antagonistic vibes to me.
Can we also get, if we're speaking of, like, antagonists, do we still know exactly what the Union is?
No,
like,
no. We don't.
Okay.
We don't. We talked about that a lot in the last podcast. I don't know if we need to get into it here. The Union is completely faceless and pointless. We're like.
But I'm just saying, we still don't know.
No,
like, in this episode, we received no new information.
None.
It's worth pointing out that threat we still don't quite understand, even though we now know that Madrani was part of, it's no longer her union.
Hashtag not my union.
Yeah.
Hashtag not my union.
And
exactly. But it's like, well, what does that even mean? I don't, you know.
But I think the biggest thing with that, Beatriz, thanks for bringing that up, is that that's the biggest reason to think that somebody here at the Anvil is a villain. Because if we're not getting any characterization for the Union, I just don't care about them. It's just
exactly.
What if Colonel Raquel is the villain? Like, she's got a lot more antagonistic vibes than Dr. Weller does. Like, she's the one who's like, hey, you forget these assholes out of here.
And she doesn't know Spanish.
Exactly. But I will say, if they do flip it and have it be him instead of her, it would be in a way a subversion, because typically it is the general of the army that does, like, the bad, whereas the scientist is seen as the good. And so, I mean, there is this, it would have flipped it, just as Alex has said. Up to this point in these 3 episodes, I have gotten no indication that he is the bad guy.
Okay.
Or a bad guy.
That's fair. And then lastly, we have this payoff to this joke from the beginning of the episode. Before we get to last thoughts, I just want to call out this modern Major General joke that landed really, really well for me. It was set up for like the entire episode, and we just land with this android essentially just making this modern Major General joke, and I think this landed really well for me. I don't know if it really landed for you guys or not, but I liked it a lot.
I enjoyed the silliness of it because I wasn't expecting that kind of a modern pop reference joke in this kind of like far fantasy anime show. Yeah. So like because of how weirdly it fits with the genre, it works. I don't. There's the first mention of the joke. He says more of a Dylan fan, I suppose, and I don't really understand that part of the joke, but the payoff is funny, like just him singing in comic operatic lyrics. Yeah,
it's pretty. You would expect this kind of joke to clash with the rest of the show, but it actually fits in pretty well, I think.
Again, because David Tennant is a boss. Whatever he says, I will dive into the pool with it.
Yeah, he carries most of these jokes on his shoulders because he's just very charismatic. But let's just get to final thoughts here. Michelle, is there anything else we didn't cover yet that you really wanted to talk about in this episode?
I don't think so. I'm honestly just looking forward to more character stuff moving forward.
Who's your favorite character right now?
So there are 4 of them.
Okay, tell me who they are.
Yaz, Cammy, Kazu, and Valentina. I think all of them are pretty strong. And like, I don't think Kazu's had as much chance to we see him in relation to other characters more than him standing out on his own so far. Yeah. But I fully believe that he's going to be awesome once he has his moment to shine. And I don't know. I mean, Cammy is very bubbly and just like a delight. She's clearly the youngest person there, and she has this like, irresistible energy to her. But yeah, it's like I think she's like really crafty and smart, and she has so much going on that I want to learn about. So she's definitely on my radar. And Valentina, I don't know, I weirdly kind of relate to her perception on life. So I enjoy her a lot whenever she's on screen, and she's like a tough cookie, and that's nice too. So those are my faves.
Awesome, that's great. Alex, do you have any last thoughts here, or any favorite characters you want to mention?
Well, after talking through this episode, I think Valentina has shot up my rankings because she's very interesting in this episode of like her attitudes on life and her contributions to the final monologue. But we also get a little bit of fleshing out of her in the action scenes, like her kind of being playful with Cammy and like tag and like, "Oh, come here, you little bunny." So she's got different layers, and I appreciate that she's gotten that development so far. So I think that Valentina is a low-key favorite of mine. Obviously, Dr. Weller is the number 1 because I am obligated to enjoy all David Tennant performances. Shout out to DuckTales and Final Space as well. Yep. And just in general, I think that with the show, I'm down with it so far. I enjoy some of the characters. I hope that Julian and Miranda become better characters because those are the big names. So I kind of had high expectations for them, and maybe that's the problem. Maybe I was wrong to have expectations. But I hope that those characters get better and match up to the characters that I do like. And I like the in many shows that we cover at Overly Animated, I especially praise the ones that do a good job at blending humor and action. And I think that Genlock is on the right path with that, where they're making weird jokes that work, and also sprinkling in the action and the character stuff. So I think that right now it's heading towards a good blend, and I hope that it continues on this line. So yeah, episode 3 was very strong, and I think a good example of what this show could be at its best.
Awesome. Beatriz, any final thoughts or favorite characters?
Well, in terms of final thoughts, speaking of humor, I didn't get that joke, but that's okay.
The modern Major General one?
That's okay.
It's fine. It's fine.
But I am excited for the next episode. Favorite character is Cammy, obviously, and I ship Kazu and Valentina.
Really? You ship them?
I do. I think they'd be really cute. I just want them to be very cute and then protective over Cammy because I'm just very scared. She's very young, and I'm just you need, do you have any idea what you're about to get into? I was I don't know, girl, you're about to be so emotionally traumatized. and I feel like they could also I don't know how old these characters are because at one point they mentioned that they were kids, and I'm like, well, in my perspective, Cammie's the only one who actually looks like a kid.
All I know for sure is Cammie is 17, but I'm pretty sure the rest of them are older.
They're at least mid-20s.
I can check that.
Maybe they were being metaphorical and they don't have army training, so they're
green, I guess.
Into battle. Yeah.
I don't think we.
Okay, that makes sense.
I don't think we know everyone's exact ages though. We know that Chase is 25, but it doesn't look like we know anyone else's age for sure, except for Cammie, because it was told to. It was in promotional stuff. They talked about it that she was the youngest.
Gotcha. Okay, well, point is, I think I mentioned on the Discord, seeing children in danger makes me anxious, so I just want her to be okay. And if I want,
she can hold her own. Cammie's
I know. I'm just saying, just mentally, it's one thing. There's she wouldn't even be allowed to join the army just yet because she's 17.
She's the only one who says fuck.
Yeah, she is.
Well, that's
she is.
Part that's really funny though. I'm just you're being crass because you want to be and you think it's gonna make you seem older, and I'm just oh, Cammie, no, you're such an immature child. I want to protect you. Anyway, but yeah, I'm excited for the show, and yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to see where we go next. But until then, we'll cover this every week. But until then, find out all the info on this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can join us on Discord to text chat about animation at overlyanimated.com/Discord. You can support us via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. And thanks to all our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Alex, aka Esteban Universidad.
What?
Whoa, it's Alex.
Yay, it's you.
I don't know how I feel about giving financial support to this particular.
Wow.
I thought it went well.
Are you dissing the podcast or the show, Alex?
He's dissing us.
I'm dissing myself.
Oh my god. All right, we're moving on. And thanks. You did great today. You did great,
other
Alex.
People, please support us. Yeah,
no, Alex, you did great. And thanks as always to our patron executive producers, John, Ryan, Steve, Alex, and Hugh. Yeah, I don't think there's anything I really need. Is there anything you guys need to plug? I don't think we're covering some anime like Promised Neverland, which maybe you guys, if you're watching this, which is pretty much an anime you'd like to see. But I don't think, there's anything else really big right now.
Well, something to plug is
coming soon.
Oh yeah, lots of Ladybug. Also,
yeah, Carmen Sandiego podcast coming up.
And Carmen Sandiego.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's exciting.
Yeah,
and soon there's going to be a feedback podcast for Steven Universe for Change Your Mind.
Oh, right.
And there's going to be a Young Justice Primer podcast where we talk about we try and help you, guide you through all these various
I did not know that was happening. That's awesome. That's an awesome.
I didn't know any of that was happening.
Yeah, and then also, one other thing, we're going to be doing a Dragon Ball Z podcast, which, now that I know that Alex doesn't like fight scenes, it's going to be a very interesting podcast.
Huh. Wait, what?
It's going to be very interesting to see Alex watch Dragon Ball then. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Adios.